is a well-brought-up farm boy. At the same time, he's a young man or a man who has no clue who and what he is and why he's so different. Which is wonderful, I think, because it has that traditional man at the same time, this guy who's very untraditional. He doesn't know what he is. And then his discovery of what and who he is something which layers his life with a sense of loss in that discovery. And ultimately an outsider at all stages of his life. And the only place he's ever made to feel at home is with Martha and Jonathan. And otherwise, even when he knows who his real parents are and what his real home is, he's made to feel even more of an outsider in that. Jonathan and Martha raised him to be the good person, the traditional moral man. And I think Kevin and Diane brought that to the characters exceptionally well. Kevin had an incredible sort of openness and softness and traditional dad type way about him when he played the character, and it was very easy to feed off. And the same with Diane. She played the caring mother so well, and there's still that essence of slight fear of Cal, or Clark for her, because she knows what he's capable of. And certainly with our interaction when I was playing young Clark, it's what will he do? What will he do? Constantly. And I thought that was fantastic. When I'm older, she's totally come to accept it, and she knows I'm a controlled person. And she portrayed that wonderful strength, which is where Superman gets a lot of his strength from, as much as it may be genetic. His upbringing, his nurturing, if you will, is from the likes of Jonathan and Martha, and the strength which Kevin and Diane brought to those roles makes it so easy to play that kind of strength. I really like working with Amy. Amy's great. She's good fun. She brings a good energy to set. And on long days, you do need someone to goof around with sometimes. And as far as an actress goes, as a contrast, when you get the person, Amy, who you can goof around with and have fun with, and then she brings this wonderfully sort of powerful yet soft character. And I think the interaction between Amy and Superman is that she is obviously Superwoman in a societal sense, and then she's finally found this one guy who can literally sweep her off her feet. His energy is always up, and it's fun. As much as the hours are extremely long, Zach keeps stuff interesting, and he's excited, and it's cool for him too, and it's cool for us, and that permeates through the entire crew. We are making Superman, for goodness sake. It's seriously cool, and Zach reminds us of that with his attitude and his way of being every day. And yeah, I couldn't have asked for a better director for this job. Absolutely not. He's great. Impressions of the costume? I love it. I think it's a really good modernization of something very classic. It's got a very alien feel to it, while being recognizable as the suit that we know and love. I think it brings a sort of almost like a testosterone energy to something, which I think is required in today's sort of movie world, because everyone is so used to things being so high octane and visceral in the news, movies, our fantasies, have to be even bigger and better. And I think the suit lends something of that to this. It's something which is exceptionally cool and otherworldly at the same time.
He is very dynamic and charismatic as an actor. He's and he's very unflappable. I can't imagine how hard it's been for him, all the work he's done for such a long time, to not get bogged down by that. He's very, I don't know, the camera starts rolling, he hears action, and he just snaps into it. He's obviously thought a lot about it. And he has a real sense of what Superman or Clark or Cal would do and wouldn't do, would say, wouldn't say. And to him, Clark's sense of dignity and his sense of values are very important, and he'll always protect those, I think. Russell's full on. I mean, the man knows what he's doing, you know. He's proven it time and time again. And he's a real man, you know. It was intimidating, honestly, when I found out he was going to be doing the part, and the first day I met him, back when we were training in Naperville, I was nervous, you know. He rose through the ranks, and he's a very fiercely devoted warrior, fiercely loyal to Krypton. Krypton finds itself in a bad way, and he's trying to figure out what to do about it, how to solve the problem, how to keep Krypton from disappearing. I think anyone who's a warrior and spends that much of their life training to be a warrior and following out orders, once that structure is taken away from them, that society is taken away from them, they still have the impulse. I mean, becomes part of you, you know. Whatever you do in your life, if you do it for long enough, how do you just let that go?
Really interesting thing with Zach is it's a gigantic job, and he's probably chosen to do it the hardest possible way by making it, for the most part, a single camera. And you don't work on movies of this scale with a single camera anymore, you know. So that's interesting. He comes to work every day with the same buoyant attitude, which makes it easy to play within this world. I think he's doing a remarkable job. He's been so disciplined on a daily basis for months and months, even before starting shooting. And then the weight of the world is on his 27-year-old shoulders at the moment, and it's his discipline that has been most impressive. That he's just stuck with it, and he's just, head down, get the thing done. He brings a lot of care to it as well. He's obviously done a lot of thinking about it and stuff. So, the few scenes that we've had together have been very enjoyable. I mean, he definitely looks like Superman in that costume. One of the things that's really important to Jor-El to try to communicate to his son, whichever way he can, is that these things that are different about him, these strengths that he has, these capacities, it's a huge responsibility, but it's a responsibility that should lay on him lightly because it's absolute. If he doesn't fulfill his responsibility, then there is nobody else who's going to. So, it's his lot, but, he gets those superpowers, because of the idea that, he can help people.
Kind of the same. There, he has his Earth parents and Jonathan and Martha, and I think the way we kind of think about it a little bit is that Clark gets his DNA from his space father, from another galaxy, but he gets his character from Jonathan. So the DNA for the one, and then the character about who he is as a person as he walks on Earth, he's learned from his mother and his father. He's as good a person as he is a director, and that he brings an awesome set of skills to his directing. But he's one of the few guys that when you come to the set, he's just happy, and that doesn't minimize that he's not a serious person, that he's not a prepared person. But Zach has a light on. People I think gravitate towards him because he gives you his loyalty and he gets it, and he has great enthusiasms. And when it comes to the technical part of this movie, I really have been watching him because I've never felt comfortable in the visual effects world, and he just swims in it. He just eats it, and he has his guys around him, and they are not afraid. And so I have really enjoyed both my professional observation of him and my briefest of my kind of own personal interactions with him and with Deb.
I think it takes her by surprise. And I think that it's very interesting that it actually takes this person from another world to actually make her more human. His humanity actually brings about a change in her, and probably gives her a stronger sense of humanity. And I would think as the story continues, she becomes a stronger and more well-rounded human being. I think she's pretty focused when we find her, and pretty dead set on what she believes to be the most important thing, which is telling the truth. There's no reason for secrets, and I think she really she comes to really respect humanity and identify more with humanity by her experiences with Clark. I expected a lot more swagger from Henry. I don't know why, but he was actually so humble and so generous, even just in that first reading. And I remember thinking, that is a rare package, not only in life, but especially in Hollywood, to find somebody with that physical presence that also has this sort of, I hate to say it, but this softness almost. There's something gentle and genteel about him. He has that quality, and I think that's so important for Clark and for Superman. For that, you're able to believe that he would, just as likely save a kitten as he is to save the entire world. The Daily Planet stuff, I had a blast, because I feel like that's where Lois is the most comfortable, and that's where she feels the most powerful. That's her world. That's her, and that's so much fun. And to work with actors like Lawrence and like Michael, who is Michael's like a huge discovery for me, because he's one of those people that I've always known but never knew I knew. I've seen him in so many things, and it was an instant rapport with the entire group at the Daily Planet, and I had so much fun working with Lawrence, who just immediately kind of dove right into that sort of contentious relationship with me, and that was fun. And you could tell that these were two people who really had a lot of respect for one another, but at the same time, like, they butt heads, but that's part of their respect and love, is they know the other person is not going to back down, and Lawrence just made it so easy for me to fall into that. Working with Zach, at first I was a little nervous because he is so confident, and I don't possess the same confidence. Like, I'll work on a scene for 5 days if they let me. Like, I love kind of getting into it and kind of perfecting it from beginning to end. And Zach knows exactly what he's looking for, and he knows when he has it, and that gives you a certain amount of confidence. And he just has a really strong idea of the story, and he has a really strong idea of character. And I was very excited by that. And I hate to say that I was surprised, but I was, because I knew he was such a visual master, and I knew that he had a really strong vision for the film, but his detail to character and his understanding of character was awesome. And I knew that the first couple days I worked with him, because he would really stay on something when it really had to do with the character. He would really stay on it with you, and really, you know, as we were sort of shaping Lois and shaping their relationship, he really stayed with me, you know, and really helped me to find Lois in this new world and in the tone of this film, and I so appreciate that. When I thought of Superman, there was definitely, I had my ideas of what that was and who that was, and when I thought of Lois, there's definitely ideas of what and who that was, but at the same time, I think I come from theater, so roles are constantly reimagined, you know, and redone, so it never throws me to have to reimagine a role or to come at it from a new point of view. To me, it's very exciting, and I hope that people are excited by it, and that they embrace this new envisioning of not just Lois, but of the entire world.
Martha as really pragmatic. I think she has to be, because when you find this star child in your barn, and you realize all the capacities that this young being has, there's a moral obligation to be the best tour guide you can be. That's how I approach motherhood, and I think that that's sort of what it winds up being, is you explain the world that you are born into the best you can. And there's a lot of explaining for mom and pop to provide. Martha and Jonathan were both rather heroic as parents, only in that they had to persevere, not only with protecting Clark with his anonymity as far as his powers and all that element of hush-hush, without instilling shame in the child. So that's, how do you know, we would encourage Clark to utilize his and honor his gifts at home privately, and ask him to keep that protected from the outside world without having any shame about his gifts. So there's a lot of explaining to do as a parent when you're saying, do this, not that, here's why, trust us, you'll see later. I mean, we do that anyway as parents. But when somebody can hear everything you say and see through walls, you must live an honorable life with no hypocrisy. He is, I think, the most earnest person I've ever been around. I mean, he's just, he's a really good guy, and he seems very clear, just clear-headed, and he's not interested in games or confusion or complicating things where they don't need to be. And I say that with great respect, because I think he understands the distinction there.
He's driven by the need and by the pleasure of killing, in a way. So violence is her satisfaction, and she doesn't feel remorse or you know, I mean, she inflicts suffering and she's experienced by herself, but it doesn't really has a meaning to her. So she's a genetically engineered creature. He's so playful, you know, and I just remember him gesturing like passionately and wildly, to giving me his vision of my character, and then we just, you know, we just began to throw ideas around and getting some ideas for her, for the nature of her character, and what I like about Zach, and I think I'm quite spoiled to work with him, is that he keeps it so light on set in between takes, because I mean, shooting green screen and stages can be very impersonal. And he counterbalanced that quite beautifully with just telling jokes and talking about movies. He's a pop culture junkie, you know, so it's just great to watch him and be around him because of that. Watching Russell Crowe playing Jor-El, for example, I thought he has this great stillness, and he became that powerful man without raising his voice or without being belligerent, right? And then I watched Michael in the character of Zod, and then myself, and I thought all three of us, maybe we never really talked about it, but the stillness and the way they carry themselves, we had this in common without even talking about it, and that was fascinating to me. And the training with Jim Jones and Mark Twight helped me a lot with that, in that aspect, I have to say.
Incredibly brave woman in very sad circumstances, which is to me extremely human, and kind of reminded me somewhat of women in war, what they had to do to save their kids. It's happy and fun. You never forget that it's all an act. But at the same time, he really likes, as an artist, I think, and as a human being, to investigate the far ends of a scene, the darkest moments of it. So he tends to go more and more and kind of push you more and more towards the extremes, which was great working on this because the scenes are extremely dramatic.
I was there with them for 2 weeks, subsequently 2 more weeks, and every day same thing, 80-degree weather, didn't say a word, very pleasant to everyone. My family came, and I thought, wow, those are the attributes that Superman has. He toughs it out. He's very pleasant. I just think he's doing a great job. I thought the beauty of it was in the truth of the details, and it's the truth of the journey. And it's a journey that we all face in our own way. And I really thought that the examination of that. Well, he's Superman. Oh, he's everything. Yeah. But you know something? We can all be Superman, whatever that is. But this was his journey. This is what he had to go through. And superpowers, if anything, really didn't help him. It made his particular journey just as difficult as yours or as mine, as most people's. So that's what I found really of value and entertaining.
Gets contemporized in this version. Why is he important? I think he's important for the same reason that all superheroes are important to us in our culture, is that we need, champions, and we need someone to believe in. We need to believe that somewhere inside of us that there is a quality that is, beyond human, that is superhuman, that we are capable of more than we think we're capable of. And I think that's the thing that the superhero mythology gives us, is it gives us a way of expressing that need to be able to do more, to protect, to defend, to excel, to inspire. I think that's why it's important. I think that's why he's, like many superheroes, still relevant.
Be a villain because you want your villain to be relatable, but he's not written that way either. He's not just a villain. He has a point of view that's pretty solid. He has a pretty, what motivates him to do the things he does in the movie are completely within the morality of his point of view. He, like Superman, hopefully the audience would be like, I guess if I were him, I might do the same thing. And I think that's what makes him interesting, is that you you are presented with a character that really, from his point of view, is striving to do the right thing, but it just happens to be a kind of slightly broken point of view. With Krypton, because we had this, organic movie language that we were going for, the danger was like, oh, it'll just feel like sort of sci-fi Earth. And I was like, no, I want it to be exotic, I want it to feel, even though we're shooting it with the same cameras, I want it to feel like we're really literally on another world. And an ancient world, the armor that they wear and the costumes. I kept telling everyone I want it to feel like they've had these things for generations. This is an ancient culture that has kind of been without progress for a long time. They're kind of stuck in a rut for, protocols and councils and all that stuff is kind of slowing them from, making progress. So they've kind of reached a place where progress is not that big of a deal. And so, yeah, that was kind of our approach to Krypton. You want Zod to be like every character, I guess, but you want, for these super iconographic characters, you really want to believe them, and I think that's the thing that Michael really, for me, every time I'd watch him do his thing, it was always about like, wow, okay, that's real, like that's happening. And I think that in such an abstract and surreal environment, and with such an abstract and surreal character as General Zod from the planet Krypton, it sounds hard when you say it that way, but he took all of that made it better and then gave it back. I wanted that experience of being out there on location to influence everything. Henry, all of us, design, not be, corralled into shooting one little corner of the set because there was nothing else to film. Being able to kind of improvise, as we filmed. And I think we did do that. And I think that shows in the movie. There's a much more organic quality to the film, even though, look, there's huge visual effects in the movie. There's no two ways about it. But there's also some real gritty reality that we were able to get by being on location. And I think that just performance-wise, it just was better for the actors to be really there. Henry has a big, there's a ton of responsibility, it's all the contradictions in a weird way that you have to understand. He's physical, but he's not physical. He can fly, but he has to pretend like he can't. He has, all the things he can do that he has to keep sort of inside, but also doesn't resent that, and he's okay with it, even though he's been sort of persecuted by the human race. He still finds good in them, all those things. That he absorbed that and loved it, in a way that I think allows this Superman to be really relatable.
What I really love about the way that they've approached shooting the film handheld is they've been very faithful to the, documentary, cinema verite style of what that brings on the one hand. But John is such an amazing operator that when you really need certain moments to be intimate and to make sure that you're not conscious of the camera, he's such a fantastic operator that he's able to make you forget it. The camera barely moves. And then when you want to break that intimacy, just to remind you, oh, you're watching something, and as it's happening, or maybe you are getting something, you're getting to watch something that that maybe you shouldn't be watching. He breaks it, or he'll approach it with that immediacy, that documentary look. The culture of Krypton, anyway, is kind of a military culture. They were a physical population, and even the members of the population, the members of the citizenry that had other occupations, whether like Jor-El, they were a scientist, or a politician or whatever. They're a physical culture, so they're going to be very physical, and that's what made them warlike. I've enjoyed actually the whole process with Zach, from pre-production through the shoot. He's a incredibly visual guy, everybody knows that. He's incredibly facile with visual effects, everybody knows that. But what I didn't know until I actually started to work with him is how intellectual he is. And that was really enlightening and a pleasure to talk about things from that lens as well. And he's also really exciting to watch. He's got great energy on the set, and tremendous enthusiasm, and it's infectious. Henry's been working on this role of Superman well beyond the time that we started to shoot. He found out that he got the role in April of 2011, and we actually didn't start shooting until August. And he's been psychologically getting into the role of Clark, Superman, as well as physically getting into that role, and he completely metamorphosized his body. He always had a great physique. If you saw The Immortals, you know that Henry Cavill has a great physique. But he really turned his physique into something super for this film. And he gave and has given just an amazing amount of hard work and great thought to every aspect of his performance. And when he's in that suit, he really changes. He really owns the character, and you can see it both on and off the set just by the simple fact that he dons that suit, even when the cameras aren't rolling. It's fun to watch.
Delivered. I mean, it wasn't just a superhero film. It was this really great classic story, and it had really deep characters, and it was the first time I could see Superman like relatable to a modern audience. And he was a man, and we see him and he had a beard, and he just felt really dimensional, and he didn't feel like this plastic Boy Scout that was just so good. He was struggling like we struggle. Well, how exciting to create, what is our Krypton, to create this place that we haven't seen before, that we can go to. And, there are flying creatures, and there are these Rondor beasts, and to have different technology that we haven't seen before, and to see these spaceships that, look like these organic bug-like organisms. The attention to detail in everything in Krypton is so important, because it makes it believable, and it's very immersive to an audience, so they can go to this place, they can journey to this place and not think twice about it. Lois in the canon traditionally has always been a strong female character, but she was still always being saved by Superman. She was, she was a really ballsy reporter, and she was out doing her thing, and she was working at a time when, maybe not that many women had those high-power jobs, much like our Lois. But today, I think women have those jobs. I think the difference is that our Lois is more proactive. Our Lois is not just being rescued or seeing what Superman is doing. And she's strong-headed, and even though Superman might say, you know what, maybe you shouldn't, you stay here where it's safe, she goes off and she does what she needs to do. And I feel like she's much more proactive and much more active than we've ever seen Lois before. We have such a great cast, and a cast of really respected actors, and who took the material so seriously, and who just showed up every day, like wanting it to be great. Didn't just call it in. I mean, everyone added so much, and they were coming with their own ideas or things that they wanted to incorporate in their character. And I feel like that's just another reason why that Man of Steel is not just a superhero movie, why it transcends that, because to have this caliber of talent in this film just says something in and of itself, and that's because the material is so rich and deep, and the characters are so dimensional and believable and relatable, and that's what makes it really exciting.
One of the things that we actually had quite a bit of fun with, but I think is really important to the story, is we spent a lot of time on Krypton in the beginning, and I think that allows us to get a better sense of sort of the history of Krypton and who the Kryptonians are, and understand their society, maybe more so than we've ever had that opportunity to in the past in any of the films. The canon's always been rich with Kryptonian history and culture and story, but cinematically, I don't know that it's ever been explored in the way that we had the opportunity to explore it. I think what's exciting is that in a lot of ways, time has caught up to the character of Lois Lane, and to have a strong female lead as this, relentless reporter who's witty and smart and sure-footed, it's real. That's the world we live in. And so I think our responsibility, as opposed to in the past, maybe it was to create this really aspirational character for people to look up to that might not have been the norm in that time period. I think now it's people we know, and our responsibility is to portray it in a realistic fashion, and that's exciting.